All right, Brad, here we are again.
We are here. I'm Brad.
I'm Scott.
Welcome to Curiosity.
We're here with Anastasiya today. She is being really generous with her time because we kind of had her here last minute, and it's awesome. It's going to be a great discussion, and we are just thrilled to have you on the show. Welcome, Anastasiya.
Thrilled to be here.
Right. Well, let's jump into it. We've got, I think, a lot to talk about. I heard you mention that you're from or living in LA. I don't know if you're from LA, but you're here visiting. So how long have you been out in California?
Since 2018. I was actually originally from Houston, originally from Russia, then moved to Houston, then moved to LA.
All right. Good deal. Very cool. And how do you spend your days nowadays? We'll get into sort of, I'm always interested in kind of the founding story, the kind of the moments and sparks of life that kind of got you to where you're at today. But sort of what do you spend your time doing kind of?
Yeah. So, I mean, I work more like a 9 to 5, but it's more than a 9 to 5. Work in healthcare analytics consulting. So work with several different businesses. We're working on their analytics strategy currently, which is really exciting. Get to go and have a lot of impact there in terms of the kind of the future of what healthcare looks like. And then
It's a wild time to be doing that.
Yeah. Lots of room for opportunity.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, what else do you do?
And outside of that, I dance, and I'm actually producing music. So I'm producing my first EP currently.
Sweet. And you're on Spotify, I understand.
I am on Spotify.
Cool. What do people look up if they want to see you on Spotify?
It's just Anastasiya.
You can spell it out though.
Spelled
It's
with
different.
O-I. Anastasiya.
And we'll put that in the show
And
notes.
we'll make sure that's in the
we'll
show
track
notes.
that down. People can
Sounds
find
good.
it. That'll be
And we'll put a
awesome.
link so that you don't have to just listen. But for
Right.
those that are auditory, there you go.
What
Spotify.
genre of music would you describe it as?
I'm playing with the genres currently,
Sure.
but currently a little bit more on the rap side.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, I'll check it out. That sounds cool.
I mean, I
Mhm.
love hip hop. I'm a huge Drake fan. Quote him all the time. What a time to be alive.
What got you into that genre of music? Like, how'd you land there?
So actually, I never thought I would be in music. I was one of the people who never really sang at karaoke or anything like that. I dance. And
Okay.
so I was dancing in a music video.
Okay.
And then the producer had asked me if I was available to do some Russian rhymes for his next album. And so I went into the studio, did the Russian raps. Then I heard that there were animal sounds on his album. And so I was like, I can do animal sounds. I can do rooster noises. I got the owl and the dolphin down.
Hey, wait, hold on. Let's stop there for a second. So you said you can do rooster noises. I get the
Yes.
rap, and that's great.
Yeah.
Russian rap, it's also super cool. But rooster noises, let's dive into that a little bit. Like, could we hear one on the show?
Yes.
Would that be possible?
All right.
Let me see if my voice is there.
All right. There it is.
Boom, rooster noise official. Yes, maybe
That
that's like
is
an
awesome.
intro.
So you just sort of opportunistically like, hey,
Yeah,
I
I was like,
happen
well,
to.
I can help with that.
Very cool.
And so it's on the album now. But then he put, we had some additional time, and so he put on some beats, and he's like, do you have anything for this? And so I had written some poetry way back when, and so I was like, here you go. I have my poetry, and he's like, no, you're singing this. And so now I have put out that song.
Okay.
And so that was kind of my original writing from the poetry. And then now I have on my way to an album.
Okay. That's very
So you know your way around studios, from music studios to podcast studios. You're just a little
Dance
studio
studios.
expert. Love it.
And I'm assuming the dance style hip hop, or what kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I do all kinds. I started in kind of the Texas typical drill team, and then moved more into more classical ballet and do kind of hip hop contemporary currently.
Okay. And you still have a thread of that kind of going on? You okay? Actively. I mean, I don't know enough about sort of the dance space, so forgive the dumb questions, but is it like a recurring competition kind of thing, or it's just something that you practice and enjoy, and then when music video opportunities show up, then you're out there kind of performing? What's kind of that space? What's that dance world look like for you?
So now I'm less in the competition space, and I'm more in the kind of creation space. And so I partner a lot with the different artists to go and create kind of different either experiences or music videos or things like that. And so I actually, whenever I was moving from Houston, I was looking for the opportunity to kind of do both business and data analytics and data science, but also bring in and work in kind of the concept of art and dance. And so that was kind of what led me to LA
Awesome.
specifically.
Very cool.
Wow.
That's
That's
wild. Those are
incredibly
like
cool.
I'm trying to imagine sort of the Venn diagram of those things, like healthcare analytics and is there any overlap at all, or they're just like totally separate? It's just like when you clock out, you put on the cape and go out and kind of do something very different, like just
It's
two
a whole
different
nother set of
personas.
superhero powers.
Yeah, yeah.
Or are they the same superhero powers?
So I would say that like, kind of throughout my life, it has varied in terms of the amount of overlap. Right now, there's a little bit less overlap, but actually, how I got into data science was through dance. I was in the dance department at the University of Houston, and then there was within the electrical and computer engineering department, they were doing a project on neuroscience and dance. Taking a look at kind of the different effort factors and how those look within the brain. And so I was recommended by the principal dancer that was working with them at the time. And she was a dance faculty member, Becky Valls. And so I was kind of looped into the work at the lab. And so from there, I was given the opportunity to also learn how to program and be more of like a deeper part of the science there as well. And so that's where I learned how to program and
That's
then
awesome.
did the data science portion as
So
well.
I've got this image in my head that in terms of the neuroscience, we were wearing like one of those like devices that's like measuring and you're like dancing with one of these on kind of thing. Is that like a fair?
Yep. Like you have like the EEG cap on, right?
Yeah, I had
So
the EEG
cool.
cap on.
Technology
dancing.
catching up with our imaginations episode. Again, this is so cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was very cool.
So I guess maybe if we could rewind a little bit and kind of go back. You mentioned that you're from Russia originally and kind of made your way to the States. Kind of what was in terms of the things that you're working on now. You've told a couple of great. You just happen to be in a time and place that in just a willingness to sort of step out into something that is very unique and different from where you've been. I guess my question is, how did you develop that capability, that skill set? Because a lot of times you do that. That's there's some negative reinforcement factors that sort of happen with just like breaking outside of like, is there sort of a moment growing up where you just like, I'm gonna like that reinforced kind of this bold approach to the courage to step out and do something as completely different to make the step from dance to data analytics? I've not heard that one.
It sounds like curiosity might have been applied. Just saying.
It was definitely a curiosity. Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely always an innate curiosity and kind of I've always enjoyed multiple different things that had kind of different factions. And then to kind of work in time management, I need to find a way to connect all of them to some extent.
So just the constraint on your own time is
Constraint
kind of
on
like,
my
hey, I
own
like
time.
these disparate things and to kind of bring them into my own space.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the time constraint, but then also when you're working on the kind of the different things, it's easy to think of the different kind of threads of thought that tie them together. So, like for example, within the work at the lab, it was easier for me to pick up some of the ideas of different kind of art concepts that I had worked with before to pull in and create and generate experiments than it was for some of the other people who had not necessarily been working on at kind of the same interdisciplinary level.
So was this like more serendipity or more intentionality, or I mean, maybe a blend of both? It doesn't have to be an or, right? Like we're taught like in school, everything has to be like A, B, C, D. We seldom get all of the above, but let's go broad spectrum. Maybe it is all of the above, but was it one more over the other?
I think it's definitely a mixture of both. I do think that I kind of help create the opportunity by trying to see what's interesting, what questions I'm interested in, and kind of driving towards that. But I've also been immensely lucky in terms of the kind of the opportunities that have been offered, the people that I've met, and the people that have believed in me throughout.
That's amazing. So serendipitously intentional.
Yeah.
All right, you heard it here.
So, I mean, it's really fascinating. I feel like we could sort of spend time down kind of each one of these paths. I guess it sounds like sort of the singing aspect of your career is the most nascent. Where do you see that going? Like, is that something that is just like now you've unlocked this whole new space, or you're still kind of experimenting with it? I mean, obviously you're producing an EP and kind of moving forward. Like, where do you see that? Where do you see that taking you?
So I could see myself going into kind of continuing on into music, or maybe even going to producing route. For me, a lot of the thought has been kind of how I think is oftentimes through movement and through how beats fit into kind of a certain amount of time. And so you can creatively go and adjust how different things fit into a certain amount of time or space. And then that kind of gives you the constraints with which to play. And so that's kind of how I've always thought about creativity to a certain extent, and how I've kind of created is create a limit to some extent and then kind of break out into the edges of that box and then see where it makes sense to break the box further.
Okay.
So is it kind of like if you're watching, a great film and there's the scenes where the person's walking down the street and like the music track plays? Is that how your brain is wired? And like every day is a music track playing in your lived experiences? And
I would say so. Sometimes it's a music track, and sometimes it's like a more of like a feeling of kind of distance or
okay.
closeness. So it's kind of this as a word.
Okay. This is a word.
Elasticity.
The elasticity of, wow, that's pretty beautiful. I imagine you see the world in a very unique way. Cool.
What's sort of your earliest moment in like recognizing that was something that you wanted to do, like dance and kind of that recognition of kind of movement and beat and kind of those things coming together?
I would say whenever I was a little, I wanted to be either an architect or a car designer. And so for me, that was kind of the mixture between art and science that was really beautiful in terms of being able to create shape and space but also have function. And so for me, there was oftentimes a struggle between finding kind of the proper balance between form and function. Um, in terms of my career, in terms of what I create. And so kind of thinking through that over time has been a lot of what has guided me into my decisions.
So how did you then kind of going from that perspective end up at the University of Houston doing dance?
So I was I was going to go to NYU, but my parents and I had agreed that if I went into the honors college here, then I would go here and stay at home and stay kind of closer to the family.
Okay.
And so I wanted to be a sports medicine physician at the time, and so I went into school for biochemistry and biophysics, and then also with a minor in dance. So to kind of continue being able to work within the dance roots as well.
Okay, very cool. So sort of from, it seems like sort of as far back as you can remember is this science and engineering kind of mentality approach interest along with kind of this creative thread that's continued.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's really cool. One of the kind of aspects of curiosity that we talk a little bit about and would be interested in exploring is challenging kind of a basis or a premise or a hypothesis. And so kind of one of these questions, maybe to just kind of pivot the discussion a little bit that I've got is, what have you changed your mind about in all of these kind of things that you've experienced and stuff that you had kind of, had a perspective on a particular thing and new information came in and now you have kind of a different perspective. I'd just be interested if there's something in that bucket.
I don't know if this answers the question, but this has been something that has been on my mind lately and had been on my mind for a while, is kind of the idea between sport and art within dance. For me, it was oftentimes, can I technically do this? Can I physically do this? And sometimes I felt like I missed kind of the artistry component. And so, and that's kind of true within kind of all of the art that I've done. And on the science side, is the art still in there? And so it's, what is the right balance? And what do I feel is the right balance and how to find that?
Where are you at on that discovery journey? Is it, is there like an example of where those things really kind of come together in your mind? You shared kind of the architecture and kind of car design and these things. Are there things that you see today or maybe sort of in the future that those are going to become more and more likely to integrate?
I think that there's a lot of opportunities within science. I mean, I'm seeing a little bit of it within, or I guess a lot within the music work that I'm doing, in terms of being a lot more comfortable with playing around with it, but then also creating kind of the structure. So within kind of the beat patterns, I have words, and then I'm playing around with where should they kind of go, kind of more towards the front, more towards the back of the kind of the section, things like that. And so there's a lot of elasticity in terms of how I'm thinking and kind of moving with sound.
So as someone who's obsessed with the sciences, and that's where I like to get more nerdy than other areas of life, I would say, I think it's amazing to think about the factor of blending a variety of disciplines that may otherwise, just feel separated from one another. And I don't see that commonly where humans naturally think about, bringing neuroscience and art together to create something more magical and more beautiful. How do you feel like bringing those two together allows you to create something that is more magical, beautiful, serendipitous, whatever goal or ambition that you're working toward? Like, how does that, I guess, create it or even take it to another level than it otherwise might?
So it's kind of the story of where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. You have people who, by kind of having multidisciplinary work, you have people who are experts on each of their own subjects and are able to bring in and pick out kind of the what works from their own expertise into something that creates something kind of bigger and grander than anyone could have created by themselves.
Fantastic.
There's so many different sort of places that I feel like we could go.
My brain is neurostorming at this point.
Yeah,
It is
exactly.
official. My silence is because there's too many thoughts going on. I need to focus.
So, I mean, Anastasia, I mean, a lot of the things that you're spending your time on are really fascinating. Really, I mean, do you have like, what do you do for fun? I guess, like, is dance that outlet? Is it, could you have like hobbies or things? I mean, you're busy, you're doing lots of different kind of things. Is there room for anything else?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, this is definitely fun. This is where I kind of gain energy from, is exploring these kinds of questions, working with interesting people. I do play volleyball
Yeah.
several times a week usually. Live somewhat close to Hermosa Beach, so it's quite fun.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
California is a good place for anything outdoors.
Everything.
Now Houston is an okay time for that, but generally
We're getting there. Still early October.
Yeah.
So we get to like December, it'll be like only 80.
Then the winter storm comes.
Yeah, hopefully not again. One was more than enough. Climate change, what? No.
Exactly. So, what other projects are you working on that you have kind of on the horizon? Being out in LA, I'm sure that you bump into a lot of interesting folks. There's lots of kind of cool things. Are there anything that you'd be willing to kind of talk about or share that you feel like are maybe kind of in the near term?
Yeah, this is still super early stages, but I'm working on possibly creating a fashion line. There's definitely some clothing that I want to wear that I have not found. And so that's something that I'm interested in working on and exploring as well. And so I've had a couple of conversations about that. So hoping to have some more conversations on that sometime soon.
Okay.
And then also one thing that I felt was missing when I kind of moved to LA, and I don't think that this is missing from LA. This is missing from probably my social circles. Was a lot of kind of interdisciplinary groups that were focused on kind of creating something cool. And so one thing that I'm working on is kind of pulling together a bunch of different creatives. And so we have kind of within our group, we have SFX, kind of makeup artists, photographers, videographers, producers, etc. And so we're talking about creating different like going out to Joshua Tree and creating something, or maybe having like a creative Fridays or something like that.
And is that like in the form of film primarily, or is it I guess kind of what's the medium that
Yeah, so I the medium it depends. Right now it's kind of more in the idea stage. We've had kind of different groups. It ended up being kind of towards video or towards the production of something. But I think it's interesting to go with not necessarily a goal in mind of what to create, but maybe kind of a set of goals or questions to answer.
That's awesome.
That's curiosity.
Yeah.
Coming fully alive.
And are those things that I guess, is there like little snippets? Or these not published at all? It's just kind of for the consumption of kind of the group themselves.
Currently, it's kind of been more so on the consumption of the group ourselves, but I should probably document more. I do post things on my Instagram sometimes as well.
Okay. That's wild. That's very cool. You've said yes to a lot of things and have learned from a lot of those things. Is there anything that you've kind of said no to that you feel like was, whether it was the right answer or the wrong answer, but it's kind of something you deliberately left aside?
There's quite a few things that I've probably said no to. A lot of them are if I feel like I've done something really similar and I don't think I'll gain value from doing something kind of the same again. And so that oftentimes is kind of the work with people who aren't really pushing the boundaries of kind of the work that they've done before and just kind of trying to replicate more than kind of innovate.
Okay.
So that constant balance between pushing the boundaries and that delicate balance of when to say yes, when to say and when to say no
Mhm.
is, I think, a very wise reality to live within, right? Because it's sometimes difficult to know those things. And so what's like a cool example of, building on what you're asking, Scott, like what's a cool example of when you just said no to something, and like, how did that make you feel?
I have to be honest, I'm really bad at saying no to things.
Okay.
I'm usually more of the end. But there was a concept for a video shoot that it was in college. And so a person had wanted to basically recreate the same one, but not necessarily add anything new to it. And so for me, I kind of had the option of doing that weekend, or something that is another opportunity that would have kind of pushed the boundaries of what I had experienced before, and then my skills. So I opted to do the other opportunity.
So and is the new no.
And is the new no.
Got it.
Well, thank you for
Official.
being on the show. It's really
Yeah.
great to meet you.
Very pleasure to meet you as well.
Yes, thanks so much for being here with us, serendipitously and intentionally.
Yes.
All right. Onward.